97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan, powered by InsideTheBirds.com.
I think we have the ability to do something really special with this group, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
All right, let's bring Adam Caplan in. Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com, as he joins us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. We got a lot of Eagles to dive into for life. Adam Caplan, InsideTheBirds.com, Football at 4. What's up, pal?
Guys, good to be with you today. Yeah, I love the intro music. Yeah, I feel like I'm back in 1996 when he made that turn to become part of the New World Order. Yes, he was the third member, by the way, of the New World Order.
Yeah, there was a lot of rumors on who it was supposed to be.
You know, it's funny. My nephew and I, back then, my nephew Sam, who would later work in MMA, used to run a company called Bellator. We all guessed. We all got it wrong. I don't even, Sting was, I know you listened to Eric Bischoff's podcast. Sting was supposed to be the other option instead of Hogan to join the NWO, but none of us got it. None of us got it. See, the thing about back then, Mike, in 1996, this is the infancy of the Internet. So you were not going to get, unless you got the Wrestling Observer, you were not going to find out who it would be. Like there was no, and by the way, it was never leaked on who it was. And these days, of course, things get out. Whether you're talking about football or wrestling, usually the news gets out before it happens.
All right, let's get some news before it happens potentially here with Adam Caplan. Last week, you reported Carlos Hyde. You mentioned Freeman and McCoy as options for the Eagles. Yesterday, reported that it was a deal offered to Freeman, $4 million, I think was the number to Seattle. He declined that deal. Philly's still in the mix for Freeman, but that price tag seems like it's not something they'd be interested in. So Devonta Freeman, Philly, what do we know?
Yeah, so Mike, in my reporting on this, so I first reported yesterday that the Seahawks made an offer to Devonta Freeman, and he turned it down. My friend Mike Silver from the NFL Network reported the deal was up to $4 million. I'm told that the offer is around, the base salary is around $3 million. So the real cash is certainly more than they want to pay. I reported a couple weeks ago that the Eagles do not want to pay much more than the veteran minimum. The two deals that have gone down lately, or just some of the veteran running back deals that I think are reasonable, around $1.5 million for a season. The Eagles are not going to look to bring a veteran in for more than one season. They really want to look at their younger running backs. They know what they have in Corey Clement, who's on a minimum base salary for 1 year. They want to take a look at Elijah Holyfield, two of their undrafted free agents, Michael Warren and Adrian Killins. They had, if we go back to 2017, they had tremendous success with Corey Clement as a undrafted free agent. So that Holyfield, who was with the Panthers practice squad last season, they want to see, because he's got good size. They're looking to develop someone or even another guy for over the next season or so. And by the way, the backup that they want behind Sanders, Miles Sanders is the clear starter. There's no debate there. They want a running back who's got size behind Sanders in case Sanders were to suffer an injury, or just during the course of a game, if they have a lead and they want to rest Sanders, they'd rather have a power back to finish the game.
Do you think Freeman believes that he can get a much better offer somewhere else? And if so, how much more money could he possibly get offered?
Yeah, Hunter, here's an interesting fact about I don't know the agent. I've never met her. I know she's a marketing agent. She has either one or two players. One of them happens to be Freeman. She's the one, I'm told, according to multiple sources, who's driving the money here. It seems like she believes that she's got interest elsewhere. I know the Eagles are interested in some other teams, but I can't imagine that they're going to find a better backup deal. I mean, in Seattle, my understanding is if Freeman signed with the Seahawks, he would back up Chris Carson. See, the problem in Seattle is, guys, that they lost top three running backs, all finished the season on injured reserve, and remember they had to bring back Marshawn Lynch, and they had a rookie named Travis Homer had to finish the season for him. They just could not run the ball like they like to. They're one of the old school offenses where they don't want Russell Wilson throwing the ball very much. They want to run the ball and win with their defense. And to do that, they need a power runner, and they'd like to have Freeman. The one thing Freeman has over Carlos Hyde is he can really catch the football pretty well. just that his injury history, guys, the last 3 seasons has been fairly significant.
Where do things stand with Hyde? I mean, now that an offer on the table for Freeman for $4 million, does that give them a better idea of what the market is, or are these guys going to be sitting and waiting? Are the Eagles just going to wait it out and whoever's available? And if they don't like a guy, they'll just go with what they got.
Yeah, Mike, my sense is they are not going to move off of what they want. What I first reported a couple weeks ago, I believe, still true. They don't want to move off of a 1-year deal for just the veteran minimum or a little bit above it with maybe some upside. I just don't. I don't see them moving off of that because if they had to, Mike, if they had to go to training camp with Sanders, Boston, Scott, Clement, and the 3 undrafted kids, Holofield, Warren, and Killens, they can do that. Now, the other thing is they could also wait to see who gets released. There are going to be some roster moves over the next 6 weeks from teams that are going to cut veteran running backs, and they could look at it that way. But when you look at the list of backs that are out there, it's clearly Freeman and Hyde, then McCoy is a distant third, and that's it. I mean, there's really no one else who I think would fit for what the Eagles need right now.
Let's move to Doug Pederson's press conference, and obviously the talk of the town was how much confidence he showed in Andre Dillard. Are you believing him?
The thing that confused me, and Doug Pederson does this every once in a while, he says one thing and then something else happens. I know this internally, as I've been told, they want Dillard to be their starting left tackle, not only just this season, but for hopefully the next 8 to 10 years. But and Pederson admitted, which I've known for months, that they've been in touch with Peter's agent. By the way, Peter's agent and the Eagles, they met at the combine, so this is nothing new here. But what I don't have an answer for, and no one seems to have an answer for, is why have they not shut the door on Peters? That's the first thing. And number 2, if Peters does resign, well, then who's starting? I mean, everyone wants to pencil Peters in because he said if he comes back, he'll be starting. That's fine. Are they going to have an open competition, or are they just going to hand it to Peters? In this day and age, first-round picks do not sit for 2 years. That's just almost unheard of. There aren't a lot of examples for a team, especially left tackle. If you're drafting a left tackle, that means you don't have one. That's it. That's period. There's no argument. That's what it is. So this situation is just a little bit odd for me. When they put that press release out, Hunter, a couple months ago in March, it was basically, hey, we're saying goodbye, but we're going to maintain contact with you, and they've done that. It's definitely something I've not seen a lot of before.
They really went out of their way, Adam, to, by the way, Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com. Pederson really went out of his way to mention how much confidence they had in Dillard. And it almost seems like, hey, we got communications with Peters. That's always been there. And if Dillard falls on his face, we know to give him a call. I guess the question would be, does Peters have no other options or interest?
So before the draft, my understanding was there were about 4 teams that had decent interest. I know the Browns. They were going to wait to see if they drafted a left tackle. If they didn't, they might pursue him. Well, they drafted a left tackle. So that, to me, it doesn't seem like a very big possibility there. There aren't a lot of teams now that need a left tackle. The other thing that's hurts him, look, Mike, he's 38 years old. He just turned 38 earlier this year. He still played at a high level, which is pretty remarkable at his age. And he put a video out of him working out on his own. He's certainly healthy. The teams typically do not want to go with a guy late 30s at left tackle. The Jets, I know that they had some interest, but guess what? They drafted their left tackle. There just aren't any real starting jobs open. I mean, he certainly could go in and sign with a team, Mike, and just compete for a starting job, but he's not walking in anywhere that I could see as a starter. Now, he claims he's got offers. I'm assuming those are to be a backup. I've not heard from any team that they've offered him starters money.
We know he definitely wants to start, but is there a good ability that he could be swing?
It's interesting. I know for a couple years the Eagles had discussed internally maybe would they consider moving him to guard or get him cross-trained. As far as I understand it, he never took cross-training snaps in practice, Hunter, so I don't see that. Now, the one thing they want, Jordan Mailata is a guy they love. He's in his 3rd year. We reported on Inside the Birds, which you could find on any podcast platform, that Mailata, despite the issue in his back, never had surgery. He had treatment for it. He got better late in the season. He's ready to go. He's been ready to go for months. He, to me, would be the swing tackle. And then you could figure Matt Pryor probably would be the top backup guard. But the one concern that I have, of every backup offensive lineman they have, guard, center, or tackle, they only have one guy who started a single game. That's Matt Pryor. He only started one game, and he got snaps in another. That's a little bit risky, but the Eagles, as you know, with Jeff Stoutland, they trust him a lot, and if Jeff Stoutland thinks they don't need to sign anyone, then that's what they'll do.
And I guess to keep in mind, too, Brandon Brooks has been hurt the last couple of years. He's getting older as well. I mean, you got to keep that in mind. And Jason Kelsey is starting to get a little older. So I guess depth is of optimum need in this training camp.
You know, one thing we should mention with Kelsey, if he were to suffer an injury, the thing that Stoutland has made very clear, he does not like moving a lot of players because it makes them uncomfortable. They're not getting a lot of practice time in a certain position. Like, yeah, Isaac Seumalo might wind up being Kelsey's replacement in 2021, but if Kelsey got hurt this season, they might go with Nate Herbig, who did make the team last year as an undrafted free agent. They have not, at the best of my knowledge, inquired or looking to sign a veteran offensive lineman right now. I'm not going to rule that out. I just think that in this day and age, especially, guys, by the way, with players not getting an offseason on the field, as Doug Pederson said, on the grass in his media briefing this week, that's a little bit risky. But again, Stoutland's the guy they trust, and if he feels like they don't need to do it, they won't.
Now, we're talking with Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by Inside the Birds here. I want to go to what about Vinny Curry? He's another guy in that Jason Peters area. I mean, I know he had a little bit of tragedy happen recently that may have his mind off of football, but obviously he is still available. And the Eagles, I don't know, do you feel that they need a guy at that spot still, and is he still in play?
Yeah, my broadcast partner, Jeff Mosher, reported that he's got 3 teams interested. If you listen to our show, you'll get the 2 other teams. We clearly could tell you the Eagles have interest. Here's the debate, Mike. Here's the issue here with bringing Vinny back. He had a very good year, okay? He had a lot of success as a sub-package rusher playing inside. Well, that role would be gone because you've got to get Malik Jackson, Javon Hargrave on the field along with Fletcher Cox. So he'd only play on the outside. Now, Jeff's got some really interesting stats he got from a coaching source, I believe. So you could listen to those, and I was kind of blown away by them. Vinny had a great year, and it's very clear to me why he is wanted and why 2 or 3 other teams have interest in him. So I think Vinny's role will be a little bit different if he comes back. And by the way, the Eagles, they bring him in or any other veteran defensive end, you're looking at a 1-year deal. That's it. Josh Sweat is kind of what he is. He's coming off a very solid season. The leg injury which he had from high school, I don't know that it allows him to ever be the explosive pass rusher that he may have been or once was, very young in his football playing career. And don't forget, they need to get Sharif Miller on the field, their 4th-round pick out of Penn State last year. Never played a snap. And Joe Osman is a guy that they have sort of a hybrid role for him. They would like to get him back, and I'm told he's been healthy for months. He's looked great coming back from the ACL reconstruction. A source saw him, late last season, and he was moving around real well in his rehab. So I know that he's doing well. But the one thing they don't have, well, actually they have, but they haven't shown it yet, is their speed at DN. Jernard Avery is a guy who was supposed to be an off-season project. He needs to get on the field. That's a guy they really want to see, guys. They really want to see him on the field this season.
Was Osman going to have a significant role last year before he got hurt?
Yeah, I would not call it significant. One source said 12 to 15 snaps, something like that. If he would play, that's what it would be. He would have been their 4th or 5th defensive end, and then also because the Eagles are a team that does not have a designated pass rusher role on 3rd down in terms of playing on the outside as much. It's just that they move their DNs inside. They don't really play them on the outside. Osman might have been a stand-up linebacker, as I called it a couple months ago, as a jack linebacker. That's a term that coaches have come up with a movable linebacker, or joker, as the late, great Jim Johnson would call it. Osman's a guy that they just found this kid. The Eagles, Mike, the one thing that they've done really well with the draft, particularly since Howie Roseman came back into power in 2016, they've had very good success with undrafted free agents. I don't know why it is. Osman's the one that they found. I don't know if you've seen Joe Osman. if you saw him, you go, there's no way this guy's a football player. He's about 6'1". He looks like a hockey player. His thighs are really big. He's built very low to the ground. Here's a quick little story for you. So his rookie season, he was in a rookie camp. He was so dominant that they basically, I don't want to say they stopped practice. They couldn't find anyone who could block him, and they kind of knew they were onto something. So that was a hell of a find for them. This guy's an interesting player, but he's just not. He's never going to be any more than a fourth end.
I want to get your take on the linebacking spot. It's funny, as we are in the offseason here, people do these lists and they try to uncover things. And one guy whose name keeps coming up is T.J. Edwards. And we were wondering, well, why haven't the Eagles made a move for a linebacker? I kind of like Mark Barron, by the way. I find him to be interesting as a kind of a former safety, kind of something that the Eagles like. But they might like these guys more than the public does.
Well, T.J. Edwards, they love. He was a great story. Made the roster as an undrafted free agent last year. Out of Stanford, tough, smart. He's not a big linebacker. Really good tackler. This is another find for them. Probably should have been drafted. He's not fast, but he's a sure tackler. You're right, Mike. That's a guy that's probably, barring a surprise, will start at middle linebacker. That's kind of my understanding. That's the way they see it. Nate Gary, not a favorite of the fans, to say the least. Jeff and I were very critical of him last season. Some of the plays where he got caught in the wash. He's just not. There's a term that scouts use, and I think it's very fair. When you have a guy like Nate Gary, you're always going to be looking to replace him, but somehow he keeps starting. I don't know that he won't start this season. Right now, he's starting in an outside linebacker spot. We'll see about Jatavis Brown and Duke Riley. Duke Riley, by the way, he started for the first two seasons, for most of it, with the Falcons, and then he's fallen off. He's been a pretty good special teams player. He's got ability. And Dante Olson, I brought up, this kid from Montana, I brought up when we did that defensive the defensive breakdown. You could hear that show. Jeff and I did offense and defense, and you could hear my breakdown of Dante Olson. The reason why he didn't get drafted, very simple. Ran a 4.88 40 at the combine. That is bad. You got to run in the 4.6s, or you're probably not going to get drafted at linebacker. He's a kid who's got a real chance to make the team.
According to Doug Pederson, they will have to lean on veterans, especially early because of the circumstances. He then mentioned Nate Sudfeld, and the quote was, "I have a ton of confidence in Nate to become the backup quarterback." Do you think they are just pumping his tires to try and motivate him since they are taking it slow with Hurts?
No, here's what happened. Here's what happened with Nate Sudfeld. So Nate was told that he'd be able to compete for the number 2 job. Reported, I don't know, almost 2 months ago, the Eagles were going to pursue Joe Flacco. That was prior to them knowing that he would need to have surgery, and I'm told they just backed off. Josh McCown, by the way, my understanding was, and still is, that he's going to know whether he's playing again in June. I do believe that they probably would have offered him a coaching job if he would have known in February, right after the season was over, what he was going to do, whether he was going to play or not. But Josh had no idea. Everyone was told he would know in June. It should be his reattachment of his hamstring should be healed by sometime in June. But Nate felt like he would have a very good chance to be the number 2 quarterback, and that's kind of what that's what Doug Pederson indicated. But I will tell you, this is another message. Just come out and say, Nate's our 2, we're not bringing Josh back. They're not doing that. And in fact, I'd have to look at the transcript. I listened to about 15 minutes of Pederson's call. I didn't hear anyone ask about Josh McCown. Maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't hear that.
I did not hear it either.
Yeah, someone should have asked that, because had I been in the call, I would have asked that. But, yeah, I don't see any way that Jalen Hurts is the number 2 this season. I just don't see it. Now, the other question is, to move this forward, if Jalen Hurts is going to be active, do you use him in a different role here? Put him in the backfield with Wentz. You use him when I mentioned, like, literally 2 minutes after he was drafted, that maybe he has a Taysom Hill role. I wasn't talking about being a quarterback. I was talking about, because he's explosive. He's an explosive runner, particularly with the ball in his hands. Putting him as a running back, putting him offset, something like that. It's one thing in practice to sort of have that role in the scout team to mimic an opposing quarterback, which certainly has value, but that's not why they drafted him. They drafted him to eventually be a quarterback, but until he becomes their number 2 guys, there are other ways to get this guy on the field. And don't forget, look at this coaching staff. Morning Morningway worked with Steve Young, Donovan McNabb, okay, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson for 1 year. Scangarello is a guy that has come in who has worked with mobile quarterbacks. they've got their eye on here and on an interesting role for Hurts this season potentially. They're not going to know until they can get him on grass, so to speak. But if he's going to be active, I don't see him being just a number 3 quarterback. I could certainly see him getting on the field to do a couple things.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com, at Caplan NFL. On that, with Hurts and the backup quarterback, our friend Sal Palantonio reported today that Pederson texted him and kind of, I don't want to say complained, but he did admit that building chemistry is going to be an issue when you're not face-to-face and you're on a computer screen. You can't build team chemistry. And he referred to Jalen Hurts not getting out there, and that he admitted in the press conference on Zoom the other day that a guy like Hurts, it might be a slower development. So I guess you can expect it. I thought that was pretty transparent of him to say, yeah, you can't build chemistry on Zoom.
Yeah, Doug, let me say one thing about Doug. One of the things I really appreciate is that if you graded Mike 32 head coaches in terms of being honest with the media, he's in my top 5 of being honest. Is he always 100% telling the truth? No head coach is. But he's very revealing. He's willing to address a question. He really won't address a question. And I did think he's being transparent. And he did. Look, he indicated in that press briefing that Hurts is just it's him not being able to get on the field is certainly a problem. And the thought around the league was that Hurts would need 2 years of development before he became a starter. Not that he's ever going to start here, as long as Wentz is healthy. But you take a quarterback like this and you want to get him. To me, the whole Hurts thing, he's got to be the backup quarterback in 2021. No ifs, ands, or buts. If he's not the backup in 2021, there's a problem.
How is it possible that this offense won't change to the naked eye when you consider the coaching changes and the speed that was added?
Hunter, here's I know what Doug bristles when the owner, this is not a secret, that Jeffrey Lurie got involved with the coaching decisions in terms of the assistants. I think part of it was that he wanted to see the offense more modernized to what maybe the Niners are doing and some other teams, and that's fine. But the offense is not going to change, but there are going to be some differences, okay? And you mentioned the speed. There's so much you can do with speed. We had the great Brian Dawkins on our show, Inside the Birds. We have, as you know, Hunter, as you produce our show, we do ITB TV, and we did a video with Brian last week, which you could see on our YouTube page. And I asked Brian the question about speed and what changes. You can't, when you have to worry about speed, you have to have an extra defender deep that opens up the middle. By the way, this is what Zach Ertz told me. I hosted his event last year for Thuzio, and I told him that, hey, listen, there might be a chance for Deshaun Jackson coming back. He says, if we get Deshaun Jackson back, that's going to help us underneath. By the way, did you see the first game of the year? 250-plus yard touchdown for Deshaun Jackson. Jalen Reagor, he should start opposite D-Jax. He's incredibly fast, and he's really strong physically. This offense, Hunter, could be incredibly dynamic once they kind of figure that out when they get everyone in the field. But to do that, Jackson's got to stay healthy. Reagor's got to know what he's doing. They're going to want to get some snaps from Marquise Goodwin as a veteran backup receiver. And they like to get J.J. Arcega-Whiteside going as their physical receiver on the outside, depending on what the matchups are per week. Now, this is a lot of ifs, guys, but if this all happens, this is a top 3 offense, period, end of story.
Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds, Football at 4, here on the Sports Bash, at Caplan NFL. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. So are you DX or NWO?
NWO. And I was a huge wrestling fan, Mike. Growing up, I actually worked for WCW. My friend Ike Richmond and I, we went to Cheltenham High School. By the way, that's where Reggie Jackson went. And Ike and I were huge wrestling fans. And in our mid-20s, we lived fairly close by. In fact, I lived closer than Ike. I lived on City Avenue. It was 10 minutes from the now-defunct Philadelphia Civic Center. And we would go, and Ike had a connection, and we wound up either he would be the timekeeper, I'd bring the ring coats back, or vice versa. And one of these days, Mike, I know we're running out of time here. I'm going to explain to you kind of some of the crazy stories that happened with me there. I also worked for ECW for the first year.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. My friend John Clark, John and I, for John from NBC Sports Philly, John and I have known each other since like 94. And John actually had a wrestling newsletter called the Wrestling Flyer Newsletter. Here's a funny story about John. It would always be taped. And if John hears me saying this, he'll get a good laugh because he knows I busted chops over this. But sometimes he would tape it, and his mom would be talking to him, and he'd say, "Mom, be quiet, I'm trying to tape this." John was in high school then. It was just funny.
I did not know that. Now,
I know, yeah. But I don't remember John. John said he worked for ECW. I don't remember that. But one of the best days of my life as someone in my 20s is part of my job for it was called Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. That was ECW before it was called that. My job was to pick up wrestlers, and one of the wrestlers I picked up was Terry Funk.
Oh.
And my job was to drive him around for 24 hours. What a great guy, by the way. Really good time.
That would be one heck of a Seinfeld team, by the way. Me, you, and Clark.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. John, yes. For your listeners, Mike. I would say this, Mike. You might be a little bit better with me with Seinfeld trivia. I've following you on Twitter and listen to your show. You do come up with some obscure stuff that I'd have to look up. But I'm pretty good with names. And by the way, another thing that I like to tease people with. I'm big on wrestlers' real names, and I like to for like trivia questions, see if people could remember them. It's really funny when people can't remember the wrestlers' real names. Oh, by the way, Rick Steiner's son was signed. A football player, as a fullback. He was not drafted this year, but he is now with an NFL team.
All right. Well, Adam Caplan will bring you this Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com. Make sure you check those guys out every day. And, of course, Football at 4 right here, powered by InsideTheBirds.com, at Caplan NFL. Adam, good day, sir.
Guys, thank you.
All right. Adam Caplan here on the Sports Bash. Excellent insight and analysis as we bring you. We got a lot to dive into. I mean, all of the Freeman stuff, the defensive stuff, the stuff
the
on
wrestling stuff.
Well, that goes without saying.